Yes, at the start of the programme. Can we talk about the women's game on Sky on Sunday? It was great to see. A massive well done to Saints and Leeds for making it to a respected grand final. Well, first of all, before we get to the grand final, the main prize is the Shield, which Wakefield sadly didn't get to the final of by not beating Bradford the other week. That's a shame. Bradford lost to Featherstone yesterday. That sounded like a good game in terms of the score because they were 8-4 up at half-time, but Featherstone came back to win. Andrea Dobson, who is retiring at the end of the season,
to play in a final in
scored a try.
Game.
And they take on Huddersfield, who, of course...
New.
Yeah. What did I say? When I interviewed their player after the game the other week, it was Bethany Oates, wasn't it, who I spoke to... Beth Oates, I said Beth Oates, whichever, apologies. I said after the game to her, some people, myself included, wrote you off, said you'd lose all your games, you wouldn't do anything, and there they are, they're in a final now. Shows what I know.
And it's on before the women's grand final at Headingley, so it is a double header if you... I would encourage people to come along and see 2 games for the price of 1.
I don't know if it's on TV or not, but...
don't think it will be, but I would suspect they'll show the highlights as part of their build-up to the women's grand final.
I know that Andrea Dobson will be on at the during the coverage. By the way, before we get on to the games, let's talk about the Woman of Steel Award, because... as
opposed to the man of the match in the women's game, which we got yesterday.
Did we get that as well? Well, of course, this was the big thing in cricket last week, wasn't it, which everyone got upset about. Batters. Not batsmen anymore, batters.
I don't have a problem with that. Makes perfect sense. Player of the match. You don't have a man of the match or a woman of the match. Player of the match.
The Woman of Steel nominees were announced last week. Shortlist of which
5.
We went through the thing earlier of the criteria. I thought it was just the best player. I thought the Man of Steel was won by the best. I know it hasn't always been that way. Didn't the coach win it millions of years ago?
James Roby won it off the bench, didn't he?
Did Mick Morgan win as a coach, or was it just because he was at Carlisle?
It used to be different. When they first started, there were, I think, 5 awards. And to be the Man of Steel, you had to have won one of those 5 awards. Right. So it could be a player, it could be a coach, it could be a referee. So
Fred Lindop sadly not winning it.
You had to be the best.
Yeah. So I thought it should be just like the best player. The women's shortlist: Jodie Cunningham off of St Helens.
She'll win it.
She will win it. Fran Goldthorpe off of Leeds, which everyone now just tries to get her out of the game.
The ankle breaker.
Rhiannon Marshall, who, you know what, she
clearly wasn't fit yesterday.
She's a player I love watching because she does things on the pitch that no one else in that competition does or can do.
She's great.
She's one of those.
But she wasn't fully fit yesterday, I don't think.
Sinead Peach of York and Emily Rudge of St Helens, who I'm assuming they will be hoping is fit for the final.
She said on telly yesterday that she would be available for selection.
If I'd have had someone on the list who's not on there, Amy Hardcastle, because I think, as we talk about St Helens versus Castleford, I think her signing a million years ago, as it seems now, has been key to St Helens, because not that they didn't have the class before, because they did. We just mentioned 2 of their players there in the shortlist for the Woman of Steel Award. But she is so good and has been so key to... I mean, I'm saying this from the outside. I don't know what they like do it, but I think in terms of mentality, in terms of being a winner, I think she's changed their team around.
Carrie Roberts.
Yes,
she's been equally as good, and massively influential. And they play to her, and that means moving the ball out wide. And it's been a joy watching those 2 play, and either setting up or scoring the bulk of their points.
On Wakefield's Danny Swain should get something, because how she captains that team week in, week out and never stops. She's a bloody inspiration. Too many players should be like her. Saints beat Castleford 58-0. No one is surprised at this.
Again, like, you can call a game dour that finishes 8-0. You can admire a game that finishes 58-0 because of the skills that were on show. There is clearly something driving this St Helens team over and above their natural ability, which is in abundance. They want that treble. They feel it. I think
double treble. See?
They haven't put the silverware on their sideboard that some of their performances have deserved. They want to rectify that this year and win everything. And who's to say they won't? They look brilliant. You can admire The international where England played Wales, there was lots to admire, even though it was a blowout score at the end.
Johnny Cunningham will win Woman of Steel because she's playing 13 at the minute. She's got number 1 on the back. She plays everywhere.
And she's played hooker and half.
They are... Whilst at the start of the season they win it, so I'm not changing my mind from anything there. I'm not saying, nothing has changed from the start of the season to change my mind on this one. I have a great deal of sympathy for Castleford. Spoke to Jasmine Bell in the week. You probably saw it online. What a great attitude. If you don't think you can win, there's no point in turning up. And they went there. They had a go. They had their coach leave just before the start of the season. Obviously, the players leaving midway through.
Yeah.
They've still got some quality players there. Obviously, Georgia Rochard injured doesn't help. But you can't say they haven't had a go.
Absolutely.
Made the semi-finals. Well done to them. Hopefully, by being able to regroup over the off-season, because you can't put to lose those players at a crucial part of the season just before that semi-final.
Unexpectedly.
Yeah, it's... they deserve a lot of credit. This season.
They have hit back in a very impressive manner.
But they lost to Saints, who are the best team in the competition, despite the fact they didn't go unbeaten in the first. But then one of the losses because of COVID. It's nonsense, isn't it? So Saints are really good, and now we have got the grand final that we wanted because we have got the two best teams. We've got the two best teams in the competition.
I do like the way everybody keeps saying it's at Leeds' home ground when they don't actually play at that ground.
No, play at Wheatwood. It says it on their shirts. The Angry Ambers. This was a good game, wasn't it? Because it had everything you'd want. Comeback, underdog kind of team thing.
A Don Fox moment.
Yeah, I mean, the strange thing with York is, and it's almost like an unsaid thing, even though everyone watching knows, and everyone listening knows, and everyone who's had half a mind on Women's Rugby League this year knows, York started the season with a team which was expected to finish bottom. They brought in, as director of rugby, the coach of the team who got to the last grand final and the Challenge Cup final, last two Challenge Cup finals. They then bring in a number of key players from that team that got to the grand final last season and the Challenge Cup finals. Then bring in a number of talented prospects from other clubs around the competition.
Olivia Wood.
She's Emma Kershaw. Liv Whitehead.
Love Olivia Wood, the way she plays.
The York City Knights who played yesterday are not the York City Knights who lost to Leeds by 60 odd points. Yeah. It's
you cannot compare the two.
I'm not accusing them of buying success. I'm not accusing them of doing anything like that. I'm just saying it's disingenuous to claim that the York who are playing now were the same York at the start of the season.
It's not the story of Hull Cow or Batley.
No, it's not the story people want it to be and are trying to push.
But as it happened, they could have been 20 points up at half time. They were so much more effective in moving the ball quickly and forward. But the comeback,
much like
typically Leeds, in that it's something ingrained in the DNA in playoff football when you wear a shirt with that badge on it, that they just don't know when to give in. And it took a fantastic, you use the word virtuoso to describe Michael Lewis's try. Courtney Winfield-Hill's performance in the second half was virtuoso, and I would like to pay credit to Kira Bennett, who barely got a mention in the commentary, but I thought, again, kept Leeds in it. A distribution out of dummy half to get the forwards running on at speed to start making ground was sensational. And the two tries that won it for them were scored by a loose forward, which barely got a mention. Who was playing on the wing?
Before I forget, I just want to say, and Savannah Andrade, who we spoke to before the match, and I should say again, I said it on social media, but thanks to Saints and Leeds and Castleford and York, who put up players for us to speak to. Yes, Leeds was part of a press conference, but so on and so forth. Gave up their time to speak to us. Very much appreciated. Know who we'll be asking to speak to at the start of next season, because some clubs I won't even bother with again, because there's no point. If people want publicity, you've got to actually, unfortunately, do some work.
Could somebody tell Wigan that?
Well, they were one of the clubs at the start of the season who didn't do anything worthy when we did our start preview of the Women's Super League season.
Well, I think if they deny journalists from national outlets the opportunity to report on their games, then sometimes they get what they deserve.
You slag off pies or something. You say pie butties are evil. You slag off mint balls, or who's famous from Wigan? What's her name? Lisa Stan. No, she's from Rochdale. Who's from Wigan?
Bradley Wiggins.
Gracie Field. No, she's Rochdale as well. Everyone's from not Grace Field, who plays for York.
It was a fantastic game.
Yeah. So before, so the point I was going to say was Savannah Andrade said in, and I pointedly asked it, York, who have ended this season, the York who starts next season will be much stronger. Whether they sign more players or whatever, we don't know what's going to happen. But because they've had more time to gel or whatever, York next year will be a much different proposition than they have been this year. And the fact that they lost this game, you'd assume they'd take more out of that. Much like when Leeds lost that grand final to Wigan, that they will take more out of that and learn and
come back stronger.
Because I think that's what Saints had to do. Saints lost those two very tight semi-finals to Leeds, which we blamed on Faye Gaskin going to a wedding, of course, with the Challenge Cup. Leeds are the second best team in the competition. You know what the problem is we go back to the Hull KR and Warrington game, why people are investing in that, because you can have an emotional attachment. Obviously, Wakefield fan, but there is an emotional attachment to this Leeds side, and I enjoyed watching them come back and win.
It shows.
Pains me to say this.
Real character.
But you mentioned
and
Kira
it was
Bennett.
A great team performance.
Yeah, you mentioned Kira Bennett, who, and this is the benefit of going to see games. You can see performances that you don't necessarily see on TV. And I think it was against Warrington at Bellevue probably months ago now. Her distribution, superb. Tottenham, I think it was her second game back from a knee injury. Superb. Hannah Butcher.
Unsung heroine.
Amy Staveley. All these names
they all
just
work.
They
all
all
had to
work.
stand up together as a team to come back. And the individual bits of brilliance by Courtney Hill were exactly why she was the star player. But she couldn't do it without her team getting her to the right part of the field or backing her up. They went ahead and you thought, wow, maybe they could do it. And then they conceded a knock-on, which became a penalty from the restart, which led to a try, which couldn't be converted. But all of a sudden you're thinking, have they spent so much energy to get in the lead that when they immediately get pegged back again, they're not going to be able to rally, and they rallied once more. It was a great game. It was everything that's best about women's rugby league, but also just a huge display of teamwork. The teams that have triumphed this week, be it Penrith Panthers in the NRL, be it Leeds Rhinos women, be it Batley or Leeds or Hull KR, their team has been greater than their individuals. Their individuals have done fantastic things on the back of Mikey Lewis's try wouldn't have meant a thing if somebody hadn't made a last-ditch tackle either earlier or later in the game. And the teamwork has got the teams that we've seen to the semi-final end and final end of the season.
I think it's going to be a great grand final. I think
clearly there's going to be a red-hot favourite.
Yeah, and I think they will win comfortably. I from what I've seen this year, and I've only seen Saints play once, in that semi-final against Leeds, live in person, just because of how the fixtures.
But that was closer than it looked at one stage.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a great spectacle for the sport.
You know what the only negative right yesterday was? Why did you put Saints on first? Because then everyone buggered off. Apart from Andrew Quirk, he was there.
Because I think they knew that the better game, the closer game, was going to better as in close was going to be second, and Sky would want that second in their schedules. You wouldn't want your main course before your hors d'oeuvre.
There's a difference, of course, between having no fans at a women's Super League game and having no fans at a men's Super League game where it's well established.
And again, I think the television coverage of those two women's games elevated it, like we saw with the wheelchair the week before. And that's no disrespect to Premier Sports, because it was on Sky with their full team.
Yeah. Now, I mean, the big concern is here, because we look for the disciplinary, it doesn't appear to be anything, is this apparent hair pull on Savannah Andrade.
It was a hair pull. Quite a blatant.
Who was it? Do we know who it was? Will they get? Is that in the operational rules? It
should have been at least a sin bin.
Definitely behaviour.